Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Eggerding. This is the last video for this unit, and we're still talking about function operations, but this time we're going to work with alternate representations to evaluate them. So this first one is from a table, and in this table we have three columns. We have values for x of -2, 0, 1, and 4. Then we have the values of f of x at those places. So this table is saying f of -2 is -3, f of 0 is 1, f of 1 is 3, f of 4 is 9. Same thing for another function, g of x. At -2, g of x is undefined. At 0, g of x is 0. At 1, g of x is 1. And at 4, g of x is 2. And so when we want to evaluate these things in function notation, f plus g of 4 means I want to take the value of f of 4 and add it to the value of g of 4. And so I go into my table and I find an x coordinate of 4 and f of 4 is 9. I do the same thing. I find 4 and g of 4 is 2, so 9 plus 2. F of 4 plus g of 4 is 11. I'm going to do the same thing now for the multiplication. F times g of 1. This means I want to take f of 1 and multiply it by g of 1. I go up into the table, I find my x coordinate of 1. I find f of 1 is 3. I go back and I find the x value of 1, g is 1. So 3 times 1 is 3. Repeat the process for the next one. So f minus g of -2 means I want to do f of -2 minus g of -2. -2 up in the chart, f of -2 is -3 minus g of -2. Now here it tells me g is undefined. I can't do -3 times an undefined number, so this value does not exist. It's not possible to do it because I don't have a value for g of -2. And then let's do the last one. This means I want to take f of 0 divided by g of 0. F of 0 is 1. G of 0 is 0. And this value is undefined. Okay, so when working from a table, I'm going to read the x coordinates and find the coordinates from each f or g and then apply whatever operation it is. If something doesn't exist, like it did down here at -2, you're not going to be able to find that answer. Also, some of you may be wondering, well, what if they give me an x value that's not in the table? Not going to happen. All the x values we ask you to evaluate are going to be in the table. Means you can't do anything besides those x values. Okay, so let's try same thing from a graph. Here I have a graph of two things. F of x is this blue wavy line, and g of x is the red straight line. Okay, so we're going to have those two graphs, and we're going to use the graphs to evaluate the different functions. So first one is f plus g of 1. That means I'm going to do f of 1 plus g of 1. So I go to the graph, I find an x coordinate of 1, and f has a y coordinate of 1. That's where the point is on the graph. Same thing with g of 1. I find x is 1. I find the y coordinate, which is -1. 1 plus -1 is 0. So when I add these two functions together, you get 0. Changing ink colors again, and let's do f of 2 minus g of 3. Again, f of 2 See, I go on the blue one, I find a y-coordinate of 2. F of 2 has a y-coordinate of 0. G of 3, so I find x-coordinate of 3, and it has a y-coordinate of 3. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Remember the numbers in the parentheses, those are your x-coordinates. F of 2 means I want to find the y-coordinate when x is 2. G of 3 means I want to find the y-coordinate on G when x is 3. Okay, let's go on to multiplication. So I want to do f of negative 1 times g of negative 1. F of negative 1, I find an x-coordinate. What's the y-coordinate of f when x is negative 1? Negative 1. G of negative 1, so what's the value of g when x is negative 1? And that's negative 5. So negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. And the last thing I'm going to work on is the division. So this means I want to take the value of f of 0 divided by the value of g of 0. F of 0, x-coordinate is 0, y-coordinate is 0. G of 0 has a y-coordinate of negative 3. 0 divided by negative 3 is a value, and that is 0. Okay, so reading from a graph, you're looking for the y-coordinates to finish things off and then perform the operation that they give you. Most of these problems for the arithmetic aren't too difficult, but it is intimidating to see something in this form. Okay, this is a real test to do you understand how to work with function notation and understand that given the x-coordinate, you're being asked to find the y-coordinates. Two questions on page 277. One is a graph, one is a table. We are going to do composition functions just like this, but right now you should be able to do adding, subtracting, multiplication, and division either from a table of values, the numeric form, or from a graph. Bring your questions to class, and we'll see you in a little bit. Thanks.